All right, so in this episode of Feeling Financially Free, I am talking to first-time homebuyers. I've got 5 tips for you guys that you can think about before buying the house so that you can actually still feel financially free. You can still live your life even after you've bought your house. And this way, your mortgage payment won't make you feel restricted and financially strapped. All right, here we go. I'm Lacey Bussey, creator of Feeling Financially Free. And if you're new to this channel, feel free to click that subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications. I've got so many tips up my sleeve for you guys. You do not want to miss out on them. Okay, so jumping right in, tip number 1 is to think about job changes. Okay, so I'm gonna give you this tip because it actually comes from my own mistake that we made when we bought our house. So to give you a little bit of background, I did an internship at a company when I was in college, and at the end of my internship, I was offered a job. So I was like, yeah, this is awesome. I've got this letter, it says my salary on it and everything like that. We had been wanting to buy a house, so we took that to the bank and we based our mortgage payments and our whole budget on, that salary and my husband's. And as it turned out, that position was horrible. The company was amazing, but that particular job that I actually had, I hated it. It was not a good fit for me at all. But at that point, I kind of felt stuck. I'm like, well, we based, buying our house off of, this income. I can't just, give it up. We won't be able to make our mortgage payments. So long story short, I was able to find a different job that I liked a lot better, and I had the same salary, so, it was a good transition, but I don't want anybody to go through that where you feel stuck in a job because of your mortgage payment, okay? So as you're thinking this through and you want to buy a home, just, build in a little bit of a buffer, of a cushion, okay? So that if you need to or want to change jobs, you have that flexibility and that freedom to do so. Okay? Tip number 2 is actually very related to tip number 1, but it's different in a couple different ways, okay? Tip number 2 is to think about different life changes. All right? So, my example for this is that from the time that I could remember, like in kindergarten, when they ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'm like, I want to be a mom. Like, that's what I want to be. Well, so I always had it in my heart that I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. We didn't think about that when we were buying our house. So again, after I eventually had kids, I went back to my job because I needed to in order to make ends meet. And I've talked to so many people and they've told me, we've become a 2-income society where you just need to have 2 incomes in order to make ends meet. I tend to disagree. And the only reason why I say that is because if you truly want to be a 1-income family, you just have to make choices that align with that desire. So when you're thinking about buying your first house or even buying a different house down the road, you can keep these tips in mind. Just think about it if you eventually want to become a stay-at-home mom. That's just one life change, but it's just the example that hits home for me. Okay? Tip number 3 is actually not all that financial, but it definitely falls under the free category, okay? Because it's all about location. When you are buying a home, please think about location that you want to live. My husband and I bought a house in a subdivision. We both grew up out in the country. I have no idea why we thought it was a good idea to buy a home in the middle of town. Like, that, it just doesn't make sense. But we did, and we're still here. So, believe me, it would feel so much more free in our lives if we had, a woods and 4-wheeler trails running through and the kids were playing outside more and all of that kind of stuff. So, just think about your location, whether it's on 40 acres out in the middle of nowhere or it's the 26th floor, you buy a condo on a high rise and it's super exciting. Whatever your desire is for location, keep that in the front of your mind when you're buying your first home, okay? Tip number 4 is to go to the bank and talk to your lender about how much you can afford for your payment, but use your own discretion, okay? So what I mean by that is when you go into the bank, most likely they're going to use 2 different ratios to give you a ballpark estimate of what type of a payment, what level of a payment would be good for you, okay? So those 2 ratios, they're called the debt to income ratio and the housing ratio. Depending upon where you go for your bank, the exact number is probably going to be different, okay? But just as a ballpark, your debt to income ratio would probably be either 33% or 36%. And your housing ratio is probably going to be right around 28%. What that means is you take your total income before any taxes are taken off or anything like that, and you don't want to have more than about 33% of that number go towards all of your debt payments. So that would be your mortgage, your credit card bills, car payment, boat payment, student loan payments, all of that kind of stuff, all of your debt, okay? When you're looking at your housing payment, you want to have it be so that your housing payment isn't any more than about 28% of your before tax income, okay? So in that housing payment, you want to include not only your mortgage payment, which is your principal and interest, but you also want to include your real estate taxes, your homeowner's insurance, private mortgage insurance, if that's applicable for you, and homeowners association dues, if that's applicable. Now here's where my actual tip comes in. When you go to the bank and you get those numbers back, okay? So say 28% of your income is $1,000, just as an example. Look at that number and really think about if it's actually comfortable in your life. We all live different lifestyles, okay? So if your commute to and from work is really, really long and you spend a whole lot in gas in order to get to and from work, that's gonna make a difference in your budget, right? If you love to travel, and you put away $300 every month into a travel fund so that you guys can go on vacation, that affects your budget also. Okay? So just really think about it, because when I would meet with people as a lender, I would show them those numbers that I got from my calculations, but I would always preface it with, some people are comfortable spending this much, some are not. So please, really take these numbers with a grain of salt and put yourself into that situation and really kind of think if it's good for your lifestyle. Okay? That leads me right into tip number 5. Tip number 5 is my favorite one. I recommended this to all of my first-time homebuyers that I worked with. When we were figuring out their new mortgage payment and what they would be able to afford and everything like that, I recommended that they make mock mortgage payments each month for about 6 months. If they didn't want to take me up on it, that's fine. It wasn't like a requirement, but it's something that can help so much, okay? So with these mock mortgage payments, what I wanted them to do is, say their rent right now was $500. Well, if, their mortgage payment was going to be $900, so you can, put yourself into this situation. Your rent right now is $500. Your new mortgage payment is going to be $900. Pay your rent every month to your landlord, and then take $400 on that same day and put it into a savings account. That would bring you up to the $900, right? So if you do that for 6 months, it helps you in 2 different ways, okay? First of all, you get a really good feel for if that $900 mortgage payment is actually going to be comfortable or not. If it's not comfortable and you have to keep on dipping into that savings account, you know that that mortgage payment is just not good for you. It's not feasible. You're not going to be able to live your life the way that you want to live it. You're going to feel super strapped and just financially tight. But you're going to figure that out before you're stuck, okay? Before you sign on those papers and before you commit to anything. The second way that it helps, this is my savings, like giddiness coming out, but the second way that it helps is that you're building up your savings account, right? So for 6 months, you're putting $400 away. That's $2,400 that you have now in a savings account. You can either increase your down payment on your house. You can actually save that for a rainy day fund for when your furnace goes out or whatever happens as a homeowner, those unexpected expenses that you have. Okay? So those are my 5 tips on how to just feel comfortable with your new mortgage payment, all right? If you find this helpful, I've got so many more tips up my sleeve, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. You can, definitely comment and let me know which of these tips is the most helpful. That way I can actually utilize that information and I can create more videos for you that are really going to be helpful, okay? As always, if you found it helpful also, feel free to share it with a friend. Okay? Talk to you guys later. Bye.